Since 1984, Sawyer has existed to support your wildest adventures. Learn about their advanced insect repellents and family of technical lightweight water filters at Sawyer.com.
Welcome to Wellness in the Wilderness. Come with us on the trail of life as we inspire you to take a step outdoors, to disconnect from the distractions and reconnect with yourself. Sydney Williams and her guests will motivate you to get active and get well. Now, here is Sydney.
All right, everybody, welcome to Wellness in the Wilderness. I'm your host, Sydney Williams, author and founder of Hiking My Feelings. And today I am broadcasting live. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I can't take it. From the ancestral lands of the Tongva people, now known as Catalina Island, where I will not be leaving until I go do tour stuff in the summer. I took a one-way ferry ticket here yesterday, and I'm so excited I'm singing, which is terrible. So it's fine. So in light of this exciting news, a few weeks ago, we mentioned that we were moving here. Now we're here. We got here yesterday. And I just am kind of curious, listeners, have you ever had a day that went so smoothly that you're wondering if it was a dream or if it was real? Because that was our day yesterday. We woke up and we had the most spectacular sunrise in San Diego. We ran a few errands on our way, got out of town, and we made our way up to Long Beach, where we dropped all of our stuff off at the barge and crossed our fingers that our ferry would make it to the island, because there has been an atmospheric river pummeling California with rain for the past few weeks, and the weather forecast was awful. But fortunately, I had some trusty tools in my toolbox, and instead of panicking, I just focused on the possibility of everything going right. And if you're on TikTok, apparently there's this thing called the lucky girl syndrome. I think I've got it, guys. I think I am ready to be diagnosed with lucky girl syndrome, because yesterday everything went so smoothly. It was wild. We got to the island. We got to all our stuff dropped off. Everything was easy. We're moving. The ferry's taking off. We're on a boat. The staff is really nice. We're meeting cool people. We get to the island. We're having pizza at our house. Everything's wonderful. In this absence of the hand of God or a unicorn horn or whatever mystical and magical creatures you believe in, I don't know how yesterday went as well as it did with the forecast, with all the things that were up against us. And we managed to just laugh our way through it all the way here. So after 4.5 years of living and traveling in a van that is old enough to buy beer, we are slowly but surely figuring out how to be house people again. And we'll be sharing more about that and what we're up to out here in future episodes. But for now, we're just soaking up all the good vibes and taking a nice deep exhale. So if you're with me, let's just all take a deep breath together, because this feels good, y'all. It feels so good to breathe. So I'm going to breathe in. I'm going to not breathe out really loud because you don't want to hear that, but breathe out. Yes. Okay. So since my interview with Natalie Small, founder of Ground Small Community Project, she's the one that runs the surf therapy program for women all around the world. She made a really cool distinction between presencing and processing. And I've been really chewing on that. I mean, if you listen to the episode, I fangirled when she said it, because it was this light bulb moment for me where I understood everything we've been building at Hiking My Feelings with just 2 words, processing and presencing. And I'm so inspired by it, and I can't stop thinking about it, that we decided to add a segment about presencing and processing to the show and also in our newsletter. So if you don't listen to the rest of the episode, which I think would be basically a crime to yourself, your mental health, and your spiritual heart, if you didn't listen to my interview with Drew Petersen today. But if this is all you listen to, I'm going to give you 2 tips. One, for your processing tip. This week, I want you to take a few minutes and just free write about how January has been for you so far. What has the weather been like? How have you been feeling mentally, physically, spiritually? Have you had any really great meals? If you're pursuing a New Year's resolution, how is it going? Just think about January so far, process it, pull out the things you like, think about the things that you'd want to improve, and go from there. It's awesome. Presencing practice of the week. The weather's been absolutely brutal for most of the country this year, especially us. And by brutal in Southern California, I mean it's raining and I'm sad about it. But it's been kind of wild out there. So if you haven't been outside yet this week because you're snowed in, actually snowed in, my friends are up in Mammoth right now, go outside. Maybe I don't know, if you have to dig your way out, then maybe you make a tunnel. I don't know, but tap into all your senses and just get present in your body with the weather wherever you're at. And think about where the sun's coming from. If it's out, what is the wind doing? It's all fun. It's all good. So there's that. Now, the only thing that I have left to do on my get to-do list, it's not a have to-do list, it's a get to-do list, because I love that I get to do this, is to share time and space with our guest today. So let's get into it. Drew Petersen is a professional skier who is on a mission to change our culture surrounding mental health. He blends his athletic adventures, ranging from skiing big lines in the backcountry to running 100 miles, with his storytelling as a writer and filmmaker in order to bring others along for the ride and to advocate for what he cares most about. This sounds so familiar. It's like if I was a skier and a dude like Drew, maybe we're kind of the same. Interesting. As a skier, he's graced many magazine covers because he's a total baller, including one of the last covers of the now defunct Powder magazine, and starred in dozens of award-winning ski films. I didn't know that, and now we need to ask questions. This is derailing my whole episode. It's fine. I'll get it. His writing has appeared in Outside Magazine, Powder Magazine, Ski Magazine, and more publications. And most recently, if you'll remember your homework, dear listeners, Drew produced, co-directed, and starred in his film Ups and Downs, which is a mold-breaking film that mirrors the mountains and valleys of ski touring with his own mental health journey. Ups and downs in skiing, ups and downs in hiking. You guys, these parallels, the synchronicities, I'm losing it. It's going to be such a good time. And before we get started, I do want to let you know today's conversation will touch on topics like mental health, suicidal ideation, and other topics that may be sensitive for some of our listeners. We're also going to be reveling in the beauty that is this life. We're going to be taking deep breaths. We're going to be talking about how to get back up after challenges and offer some tips to help you find your version of wellness in the wilderness. So with all that said, we encourage you to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And we hope that you stick around for the rest of the conversation and that you'll find this chat to be a breath of fresh air and maybe, hopefully, probably feel a little bit less alone by the time we're done. Okay, that was a lot. You're welcome. I live on Catalina. I'm so excited. I'm here with Drew Petersen. Welcome to the show, Drew. How you doing today?
Thanks, Sydney. I'm psyched to be here. It'll be fun to do a live interview. Don't normally get to do these.
Awesome. Well, I was going to ask you if you're ready for a great day, but you're already psyched to be here. So I'm guessing you are ready for a great day. You're having a great day.
I am definitely already having a great day and definitely ready to keep that rolling.
All right. Well, like I said in the intro, I gave our listeners some homework. I asked them to watch your latest films, Ups and Downs, so they too could have a good cathartic cry. Maybe that's just me. And have a little context for our conversation today. So at the end of last year, you were on tour with the film. Let's jump in from there. What have you been up to between the tour and travel, and how did it all go?
Yeah, I've kind of been all over the place, and we've actually been showing this film for a year and a half at this point. Started showing it in the fall of 2021 and then released it online last winter in 2022. And since then, I've been showing it at select events, mostly public speaking events, where we're trying to open up a conversation on mental health. And my favorite part about this film and about this past, really 2 years of my life of getting to share more of myself with the world is getting to connect with people, especially in person. So when we get to show the film in person, it's a really heartwarming and empowering experience because all these places I get to go, I get to actually see the faces of the people that it's resonating with and get to see the faces and get to hug people who it's hopefully helping.
Yeah, there really is something special about the power of an in-person meeting versus Zoom or connecting over like DMs or liking the posts and leaving comments and stuff. Are there any moments that stick out to you where you were just like, whoa? Because to get to the point of being able to share this story is what we're going to talk about today. But kind of like a fast forward preview for the audience. What has that been like? Have you just been like blown away by it? Does this feel like what you've always been meant to do? Like, how are you feeling about all of the great reception to this film?
Yeah, there's a lot in there to unpack for sure, which I guess it's good that we have an hour. But, for the listeners, my film and a lot of what I've been doing for the past couple of years is sharing my personal story of mental health struggles, and especially going all the way deep to my struggles with suicidal thoughts. And through that experience, I constantly have these whoa moments, especially with people's reactions. Like, I've had multiple 300-pound bearded men covered in tattoos come up to me and ask if they can give me a hug. And honestly, the ones that mean the most to me are when little kids thank me for making this film and thank me for making them feel seen, because trying to reach those kids out there is exactly my biggest goal. Because at one point in time, I was that young kid who was struggling with suicidal thoughts even at a young age. And if I could have seen or heard a pro skier talk about these things, then it would have changed my entire life. So getting to create that space is really powerful. And, you know, the flip side of that is being able to help families as a whole. And I've had moms thank me who have lost a son or a daughter to suicide, and thank me for helping them understand better why their son or daughter left them. And I mean, what could be a greater gift in life than being able to help facilitate that for other people? And, you know, like kind of the last point of your question, I really do feel like I've found my purpose and my North Star and why I'm, you know, on this planet and why I have this opportunity to be able to share myself with the world. And that's to help other people and to move our conversation on mental health forwards.
Oh my gosh. I just, between, like, I have this vision of like some little kid just like looking up at big bearded Drew and being like, hey man, I feel seen. Thank you. Like that is the core of all of this. And I think it's just, I've been talking a lot about how I think that our journeys are kind of similar, and that you're going around talking about your film is the vehicle through which you share your story. My book is the vehicle through which I share my story. And there's something about the kid thing that's just really moving me as I'm sitting here thinking about it. And that I've never had the experience of seeing like a young child come forward and be like, hey, thanks for making me feel seen. I know that there are young children that experience the things that I've been through. I know that there's kids that will have been through what I've been through that I describe in my book. But man, like the in-person impact with a child, and then also bringing that together with a family who's lost children. What a gift, Drew. I mean, honestly, if nothing else, like if it all ended tomorrow, if this black hole of the universe sinks into itself, or whatever they're saying is going to happen, if there's some comet that comes out of nowhere and we're all just kaput at the end of the day today, you've done it, man. Like how that's so awesome. And I'm not a skier. I've never skied. Like I went to Colorado when I was 16 and we watched people ski. But I've never actually done it. Is there a lot of this happening in the ski community? And is there a lot of this? I mean, like, are people openly talking about this? Or are you like kind of pioneering this conversation?
This conversation in the ski world is moving along, but it definitely needed to get more of a jump start. In our world, in the ski community in the Mountain West, there is a mental health and suicide crisis. 7 of the Rocky Mountain states consistently rank in the top 10 highest suicide rates in the US. And a lot of that is due to suicide clusters in ski towns, places like Aspen, Telluride, like my hometown, Summit County, Colorado. And that conversation doesn't only need to happen, but what I've really learned is that these communities want it to happen. And for me, you know, like I said, if I could have heard a pro skier talking about this when I was a kid, my whole life would be different. And to be honest, I didn't have an inspiration who I looked up to in skiing in terms of everything that we're talking about, in terms of mental health and also about being my true self. And so that's what I saw the opportunity to, you know, hopefully help start that. And there are some other people who are, you know, joining this conversation, and people who also, you know, had some whispers or pieces of it before me too that helped open that space for me. So just want to keep opening that space for more people, because as we open space for more people, they're going to come in and keep paying that forward. And I really do believe that that is how we, you know, create momentum for our community.
Oh my gosh. I know what you said about the mental health and suicide crisis in ski towns specifically, because I follow you and you are an advocate for this. But for folks that aren't familiar, is there any kind of understanding as to what is contributing to these clusters and why these particular towns are suffering so deeply?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's really difficult to unpack it and condense it all into a simple why is this happening. But a lot of it boils down to a dissonance. We have what a really great journalist, Kelly Manley, first coined as the Paradise Paradox. We live in this amazing place where people come on vacation and they want a taste of what our lives are like. And while that is true, we live in paradise. We're living the dream, quote unquote. There are also things that are hard about that. There's a lot of economic disparity here. There's a lot of transient and seasonal communities in these places. And those are concurrently problems that add up, and we don't address them. And then there's a lack of access to behavioral and mental health care, especially in these rural areas, and then especially in mountain towns. And really, it's what I've experienced through my life is understanding that my story is really the story of our community, because a lot of these reasons and factors that are contributing to this crisis at large are things that were a part of my life. Things like everything that I just mentioned, but it also goes into like drug and alcohol abuse. Like, I was reluctant to admit that my problem with alcohol was part of what was going on for me, but that's something that our community needs to come to grips with as well. And I think that there's also just an attraction of people who want to experience a high vibrance level of life to these communities. And a lot of that high vibrance also can lead to, the flip side of those high highs, which is low lows. So, like I said, my story is the story of our community, and that's why I think it's resonating. And that's why I'm going to keep using it to help other people.
Oh, man, I love that. So for the folks that didn't do the homework, the film Ups and Downs highlights an incident that happened in 2017 and everything that happened afterwards. But that isn't just like any good film. You just jump into the middle of the story and you start telling it. It's like an improv class. But there's so much more that led to the story that you were able to share. So when we get back, we're going to be talking about what happens when we avoid an emotional breaking point, and how sometimes when we do that, our bodies take the brunt of that avoidance. I know for me personally, this has been the case with regards to some of the trauma I've endured and how that contributed to a chronic illness diagnosis. And I'm really interested to hear how this played out for Drew and his mental health and skiing and just everything that was coming together between 2014 leading up to the incident that the film Up in 2017. So we're going to do a little bit of backstory discovery when we get back. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Drew Petersen.
Have you ever spoken unkindly to yourself? Do you realize when you do? Are you ready to make changes, but find yourself completely paralyzed by the choices in front of you? We live in a hyper-connected, always-on world, and frankly, it's exhausting. Let's make time to disconnect from the distractions and reconnect with yourself. Hiking My Feelings exists to help people discover the healing power of nature. Kickstart your healing journey and grab a copy of the book that started our movement, Hiking My Feelings, Stepping into the Healing Power of Nature. Named one of Audible's best hiking audiobooks and available wherever books are sold. Visit hikingmyfeelings.org today to learn more.
Sawyer is more than an outdoor company. Every Sawyer product you buy contributes to our common humanity, bringing Sawyer water filtration systems to people in need all around the world. In just 2022 alone, 260,000 households in over 45 countries received clean drinking water through Sawyer filters. Over the past 10 years, we've teamed up with over 140 charities in 80 countries to provide long-term, sustainable relief, domestically, internationally, and in disaster situations. Together, we're saving millions of lives. Thank you.
Ready to find your wellness in the wilderness? Look no further than Hiking My Feelings. Through a combination of community and self-discovery, our programs are designed to give you the space and support to connect life's dots. If you're looking to figure out who you are underneath the stories you've been given, and are ready to redesign the map of where you're headed with actionable steps and opportunities to dream big, we're here to walk alongside you. Whether you're a seasoned adventure enthusiast or brand new to the healing power of nature, we've got your back. Visit hikingmyfeelings.org today to download our free Trail Thoughts worksheets and learn more about hiking my feelings.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You're listening to Wellness in the Wilderness with Sydney Williams. Have a question for Sydney and her guests? Join us on the show at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. Now back to the show with Sydney.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Wellness in the Wilderness. I'm Sydney Williams, and I'm here with Drew Petersen. Before the break, we were talking about all kinds of things. We talked about how Drew made this incredible film called Ups and Downs, which if you haven't watched it yet, please go do that immediately. Just go Google it. You'll find it. It's everywhere, and it's amazing. We were also talking about how we got into this whole situation with just the mental health crisis, specifically in the ski community. But let's be honest, it's happening around America. And so because Drew's film is so awesome and it picks up at this incident in 2017, and it is now informing us of the story that he's now able to tell, we all know that things happen before we get to the point of where we're able to share a story. So Drew, I would love to pick it up where we left off before the break. Talk to me about what happened between 2014 and 2017 and how you were avoiding some of the emotional breaking points and how your body took the brunt of that.
Yeah, it really extends like for my entire life for me personally, because these emotional and mental struggles had been going on since I was a little kid. But a lot of my story gets boiled down to, and a lot of the focus of the film is my accident in 2017. But well before that, I'd been having a lot of physical struggles, including accidents and injuries. So in 2014, actually on January 15th, 2014, so coming up on the anniversary of that, I had this accident where I dislocated my hip, my shoulder, partially tore my ACL, broke a few ribs, and I broke my sacrum. And that is just a laundry list of things to deal with. And being able to come back from that was really doubted. I think for most people, it would have been the end of any hope of a skiing career, of a professional skiing career. But I was young and stubborn, and I stuck with it. But through that really almost 2 years of rehab to get back to full strength, I had to examine a lot of these parts of myself for the first time. But I didn't go all the way deep because I was trying to treat what was on the surface. I was trying to treat my hip. I was trying to treat my shoulder, when in reality, I had a lot going on much deeper down. And that emotional burden that I've been carrying for my whole life started to add up. And, I kept getting injured more and more frequently. And then that led to 2017, which is what we focus on in the film. And in 2017, I was on a road trip to climb and ski the highest peak in every state of the American West. And we were on Mount Hood in Oregon. And while transitioning my skis to go from skiing to climbing, there was the crack of rock fall. And when we're in the mountains, that crack is super distinct for anybody who's ever heard rock fall. And when that happens, there's not time to look up and see where it's coming from. All you can do is turtle over and hope that it doesn't hit you. And in this moment on this day, it was the first sign, it was the first sound that we heard of any rock fall across an entire mountainside. And that rock fell directly on top of me. And it was about the size of a microwave, and it fell on the back of my head, hit me in the middle of my upper back and on my left arm. And that's the accident that we really focus on when we're talking about this story. But it's also a culmination of a lifetime of suppressing my emotional and mental struggles. And what that accident in 2017 did was that it put me into a situation so dire that I had to face what was really going on, and I had to face these parts of myself. And granted, it didn't happen immediately, but I now am grateful for that rock. And this is what I say in the film, because my gratitude for that rock is really a result of it giving me this opportunity for a turning point in my life where I was able to start examining myself, and it really gave me a second chance at life to become the man and the human that I want to be.
Okay, everybody breathe in and breathe out. I'm visualizing how horrifying, and I mean, you have some of the footage from that day. Like, we hear the rock fall, we hear it hit, we see you turtle, we see your like camera in the snow, we hear your like groaning, which for me is a very distinct reminder of the videos of my friends who pass away on skydives or base jumps gone wrong. Like, you can hear them before they pass away. Like, you hear that grunting and like the assessing of like what's happening with my physical body. And I think the part that is really interesting for me is how this physical thing opened up the opportunity to examine the mental things in a deeper way. And for me, it was kind of the same thing. And I'm wondering, like, if there's listeners listening that have had like some kind of physical complication, whether it's an injury or a diagnosis, has that been true for you as well, listeners? I want to know, because for me, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I was like, oh, this is my rock. This is my microwave shaped rock coming down and hitting me on the head. Like, this is the catalyst for change. This is my opportunity to evaluate, like, why do I have this illness? What contributed to this? And so when you talk about all of the injuries between 24, like the laundry list on 2014, I'm sorry, like dislocated hip, you say you fractured your sacrum. Like, all of it is a lot. So what were some of your first steps coming out of 2014 that, knowing what you know after the 2017 incident, like, would you have done anything differently in 2014 with that laundry list compared to how you handled the laundry list from the 2017 accident?
Yes. Short answer. I do a lot of things differently with the entire, first 2 decades plus of my life.
You and me both, brother.
Lessons I know now. But I think a lot of it boils down to, getting into and growing into true acceptance of the situation. Because the path that I've been on in recent years has shown me that in true acceptance, we're able to, dig deep and fully heal, not just heal what's on the surface and not just heal the physical manifestations. So that's the biggest thing that I would have done differently. Now I would also quit drinking. I'd put more time in the gym. I'd eat healthier and I'd sleep a hell of a lot more. But that's not nearly as poetic or as good of a story as we're telling here.
Well, and I think one of the things too that is interesting to me is, like, with the 2017 incident, because that you had, some more time under your belt, you've spent some extra time, like all the injuries that led up to that injury, you have all this experience that you're building, you're adding tools to your toolbox. Is there anything for you where you're like, okay, I have this physical injury and I can like see how it's tied to this emotional thing, this mental health issue, this thing that I experienced, the things that I was like, how I was as a kid. Are you so in tune with what you've got going on in this mind body space that you can kind of connect those dots? Is that part of your process?
At that point in time, no.
Okay.
But now, to some degree, yes.
Yeah.
Even now, the real like example of that intersection of the mind body connection for me is that when I get stressed out or, get really anxious, I can feel a tightening of pain in my upper back, which is exactly where that rock hit me. And for especially those first 3 years after the accident, that pain never went away because I was always stressed out. I was depressed and I was feeling the weight of that, metaphorically, but literally I was feeling the weight of that rock still in my back. And now I still do today. So when I feel that pain cropping up in my upper back, I know that that's a warning sign and a bit of a yellow, stoplight to say, hey, pay attention to this, so that it doesn't grow into something more, and so that I'm able to relax into that moment and grow into that acceptance, so that, it doesn't manifest itself in another injury.
Beautiful. I have nothing to add. My next question is on the in the space of acceptance. Where did you come to move into acceptance? Did you have the help of a therapist? Were you self-taught? Like, where did you get the information that helped you start to connect these dots and find acceptance for what you had experienced?
The bottom line is it took a lot of time and a lot of work. That's really what it boils down to, because after 2017, it's not like I just immediately knew that something was wrong and that I needed to get help and see a therapist. Like, I definitely knew something was wrong, but back then I thought that I could, literally run away from my problems with trail running in the mountains, or ski away my problems, or drink away my problems. And that just didn't work. So it took over a year. It took 15 months for me to finally get to a point where I finally knew that I needed to ask for help. And what it took to get to that point was being in the scariest suicidal point in my life up to that point. And since then, I learned how to ask for help. I got a therapist. I went into deep therapy to heal PTSD. After that, a full year afterwards, I was diagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder and post-concussion syndrome, with the lingering effects of multiple concussions, with the largest of which being from that rockfall accident. And really, it was through building that care team around me, my therapist, my physical therapist, my neurologist, to be able to create this lifestyle and this safe place and the support system to be able to grow into that acceptance. And, that acceptance doesn't just come as a result of a decision, and the benefits of it certainly don't come as a result of a decision. It comes through working through all of the pain, and it comes through working through a lot of the dark memories and wounds and scars that I have that go much deeper than the scars from something like the rockfall accident. And then it also comes from a lot of introspection. It comes from a lot of time with myself. While it's great to have that support team and care team, ultimately this is an inside job, and it took a lot of looking inwards. It took a lot of time alone, primarily for me out in the mountains, but also when I wasn't physically able to be out there and going on long trail runs or being able to go on long ski tours. It was as simple as going for a walk in the trees and being able to be with myself and sit with myself and really, unpack what was going on and come to terms with it.
I'm curious about the space that you were in between recognizing that there is healing that needs to be done and its relationship to how you spent time outside. Because one of the things that you said was, I can go ski away my problems, I can trail run away my problems. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, when I first got diagnosed with diabetes, like the reason hiking my feelings exists is because it was in context to my diabetes diagnosis. Like before diabetes, I was eating and drinking my feelings. And then I discovered through caring for myself and managing my diabetes via hiking, I realized like if I was going to be good at being a diabetes patient, because I love getting gold stars and I really love getting straight A's. If I was going to be the best diabetes patient my doctor's ever seen, I can't keep eating and drinking my feelings. And so hiking was like my new thing. And then I was like, oh, this is my new coping mechanism. And so for me, my relationship with the outdoors initially, like I was a skydiver, I was on the women's rowing team at the University of Kansas, but like as far as like outdoors activities, not just like being outside, but like focusing specifically on these kinds of things like hiking and backpacking for me, I've always been of the mindset that like, this is where I go to heal. So was there a period of time where you realized I've been running from my problems, I've been skiing away my problems, to where now this time spent outside is part of your healing procedure?
Skiing and running and time in the mountains were always, a coping mechanism. And for most of my life, they were the only thing in my toolbox to process and heal myself. But that came, that's not enough at some point in time, because like after the rockfall accident, I just tried to get back on skis. And I figured if I get back on skis and I go skiing and, then everything will be right in the world. And it wasn't. It was still really painful, physically and mentally. And then I figured, things will change after next winter. It doesn't. And so that really hampered and put a dampening effect on my relationship with skiing, and honestly on my relationship with the mountains and my outdoor pursuits, because these things that used to be what kept me going and that were the positive outlet weren't enough anymore. And so even while engaging with them, I was still struggling. I was still depressed. And because of that, that's when I needed to reach outside of that toolbox into real healthcare, into talk therapy. And by doing so, it opened up this space in myself to be able to re-engage with the mountains, re-engage with skiing, re-engage with trail running in a way that now I have a much richer experience with those, activities. And those activities are now only one component of what I call my mental health toolbox, because now that they're one component, I'm able to fully be present and fully enjoy them for what they are, rather than trying to lean on them as the only thing that I can rely on to have any semblance of happiness or stability in my life. And now I get to be emboldened, and, every single day that I get to get on my skis, I feel like I'm having as much fun as when I was a little kid, and that's the magic in healing myself from within, is that now I'm able to engage with the world and with what I love most in a much fuller sense. And it is the best version of life that I could possibly imagine. And that's part of why when I get to share this with other people, I pass on that we're all capable of that. Because if we're all able to build this healthier lifestyle and build a foundation for ourselves, then the things that we like to engage in that right now might be just coping mechanisms and the only way to make it through are going to be that much more fun. They're going to be that much better. And, that's a huge breakthrough, and something that I don't think that I would have ever imagined I would be able to make happen if it wasn't for having to go through the full breadth of that experience.
Oh my God, I love it. I'm like, if you guys were on this Zoom right now, like I'm dancing in my seat. I'm like, he feels like a kid. He's out in the mountains. Life is good. I can think of like what you were describing, kind of putting that on my like experience and tying these stories together and our experiences together, because we're all connected so deeply, way more than we are separated. And I firmly believe that having conversations like these is how we remind ourselves of that and bring that connection closer together. But the visual in my mind was, like I said, hiking was the way that I was able to process everything that I hadn't processed up until I started hiking seriously in 2017, 2018. And I remember I was on the Highline Trail at Glacier National Park, and I was skipping, and I was like, wait a minute, because every other hike that I had done, I had been crying or processing or moving through something. And I was like, you mean people do this for fun? Oh my God. And it was just like this turning point where I was like, the mountains were prettier, the sky was better. Like, it was just a totally different experience. So when we get back, we're going to be talking about all kinds of healing stuff. Like, what is the process of healing between physical and emotional? How do these things all tie together? What does Drew have coming up in 2023? What does life look like for him? And if you have questions about any of this at all, please give us a call, 1-888-346-9141. We'd love to take your questions. If you just want to shout out somebody that's brave and telling an awesome story and who's making the world a better place simply by being themselves, if you find that inspiring and you want to pass along some gratitude today, give us a call. If you have questions, we'd love to hear from you. We'll be right back.
Ready to find your wellness in the wilderness? Look no further than Hiking My Feelings. Through a combination of community and self-discovery, our programs are designed to give you the space and support to connect life's dots. If you're looking to figure out who you are underneath the stories you've been given and are ready to redesign the map of where you're headed with actionable steps and opportunities to dream big, we're here to walk alongside you. Whether you're a seasoned adventure enthusiast or brand new to the healing power of nature, we've got your back. Visit hikingmyfeelings.org today to download our free Trail Thoughts worksheets and learn more about Hiking My Feelings.
Sawyer is more than an outdoor company. Every Sawyer product you buy contributes to our common humanity, bringing Sawyer water filtration systems to people in need all around the world. In just 2022 alone, 260,000 households in over 45 countries received clean drinking water through Sawyer filters. Over the past 10 years, we've teamed up with over 140 charities in 80 countries to provide long-term, sustainable relief, domestically, internationally, and in disaster situations. Together, we're saving millions of lives. Thank you.
Have you ever spoken unkindly to yourself? Do you realize when you do? Are you ready to make changes, but find yourself completely paralyzed by the choices in front of you? We live in a hyper-connected, always-on world, and frankly, it's exhausting. Let's make time to disconnect from the distractions and reconnect with yourself. Hiking My Feelings exists to help people discover the healing power of nature. Kickstart your healing journey and grab a copy of the book that started our movement, Hiking My Feelings, Stepping into the Healing Power of Nature. Named one of Audible's best hiking audiobooks and available wherever books are sold. Visit hikingmyfeelings.org today to learn more.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You're listening to Wellness in the Wilderness with Sydney Williams. Have a question for Sydney and her guests? Join us on the show at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. Now back to the show with Sydney.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm Sydney Williams, your host for Wellness in the Wilderness, and I'm here with Drew Petersen, professional skier, filmmaker, mental health advocate, all around just epic human being. And before we jump into this last segment, one of the things that somebody said to me, my friend Travis, who is a world champion skydiver multiple times over, we were visiting him and his wife, Hannah, also a world champion skydiver, back in 2019 on our tour. And one of the things that Travis said, like I was telling him about what we're building with Hiking My Feelings, how I'm sharing my story. It's like, Sydney, trauma is not a scratch. It is an open wound, and we have to treat it as such. And so then on my speaking tour, 60 something stops around the country, 140 stops total with the hikes and stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've said this sentence, trauma is not a scratch. It is an open wound. Like if I was sitting here with my arm broken, bone sticking out of skin, we'd be like, hey guys, great podcast, but like seriously get to the hospital. Drew would be like, I'm done. Somebody call the medics. Here we go. But we don't always do that with mental health. And I think it's really important that we have conversations like the one Drew and I are having today to help everybody realize, one, you're not alone. Like your experience may be different. The degree to which you suffer may be higher or lower, but like none of this is a competition. We're all so much more alike than we are different. We're all deeply connected, even if all the forces in the culture we live in today want to keep us separate from that and from each other. So Drew, when we're talking about healing and the process of doing it, especially when we've got such a, like, I don't want to say beautiful example because I hate that you've experienced the things that you've experienced. And I genuinely wish that your life was like super easy and we never had to have this conversation, but that's not the planet we're living on. And those aren't the experiences we're having. What about this healing process has been fulfilling for you? That's the question.
Honestly, what's most fulfilling is coming to terms with that I don't want a life that's easy. I don't want a life that's comfortable. I want to experience the full breadth of the human experience, and getting to go through this process and having the opportunity to live this truly is beautiful. And it's an opportunity that I don't think a lot of people have on this planet. especially to go through at a young age. And for that, I'm super grateful. And that's what's most fulfilling, is because I get to go through this process and I get to see such a breadth of the human experience, and I get to learn those lessons and be able to apply them for the rest of my life, because my life could very easily have ended much younger than this. Could have ended in that rockfall accident, but a lot of people refer to that as a near-death experience for me. But I was contemplating on this yesterday, and really, like, I lived a near-death experience every single day when I was in a suicidal episode. So my life could easily be over by now, and now I have hopefully a long, healthy lifetime ahead of me, But what's most fulfilling about that is that I've gotten to had the opportunity to learn these lessons, and then I'll be able to keep learning them and be able to keep applying them and sharing them. So that's what's most fulfilling.
So when we're thinking about the difference between healing physical trauma and emotional trauma, or physical health, mental health, when you break a bone, right, you have like the prognosis, like you're going to go in a cast, and you're going to need 6 to 8 weeks to do this before you can be weight bearing, whatever the prognosis is. When we have physical injuries, I feel like you might want to be in a bit of a hurry to get back to the thing that you can't do because you're injured, but there's this understanding that this is how much time this takes. When it comes to healing and mental health and stuff like that, are you like me? And the second that you discovered that this is something that you wanted to heal, did you feel like, I want to do it all right now, all the time? Oh my God, let's heal it. Let's go. Or was this also an opportunity to kind of slow down and recognize, like, this is a process?
Yeah. There's a lot of different parts in there. And like at first, I figured that what was going on was PTSD. Like everything matched up with it. It was a very traumatic experience. I was having a post-traumatic stress response pretty constantly in my life. So, the therapist I went to had experience treating PTSD with veterans. And I figured, okay, let's just heal this PTSD that's from the accident and I'll be good to go. It'll be like, I just got an oil change and tuned up the car, and, I can get back to it. No worries. And so that's the energy that I tried to attack that with and address it with. And what's amazing actually about PTSD is that you can heal it. And I did. Like now I can talk about the accident, I can hear rockfall, and it's all okay. I might be more conscious of parts and pieces, but I am healed from that experience. But what I didn't realize at that point in time was that healing what was on the surface was going to open up much more of what was lying underneath. And that is when I had to learn that there was going to be a process. And, I love the example that you're talking about with how we treat physical injuries, because I had the exact experience, later on in my journey, probably in 2019 at this point. I was going through concussion rehab, and I showed up one day to physical therapy for concussion rehab, and I was just out of sorts. I was struggling to not cry when I walked in the room. I didn't want to talk to my physical therapist, and I broke down crying. And I apologized to her for being such a mess. And she's like, whoa, hold up right there. If you tore a ligament in your knee, if you broke your ankle and you came to me and you asked me for help, then that would be totally normal. You would be okay asking me for help. We would heal it. We would address it. There's no difference with the brain. And, a lot of that, I think, comes down to tangibility, because when we see a broken bone, or when you have an MRI that shows there's a ligament torn in your knee, that's tangible, something to look to, something to point at, something that has a very simple black and white, this is broken. For me, mental illness is not nearly as tangible. While it is a chemical imbalance in our brains, there's not something to simply point at and explain it black and white. The middle ground there, and this is actually a big breakthrough for me, is concussion. Because concussion is invisible, but it is tangible. So when I figured out that post-concussion syndrome, which is basically just the after effects and continued deficits and continued symptoms from past concussions, when I figured out that that was going on, it was like, hey, it's still invisible, but this is tangible. It means there's a reason. And then that's also what mental health diagnoses do. So like from the beginning, it was PTSD for me. But then later on, I was diagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder. And having that diagnosis was, again, this validating experience of like, hey, it's still not black and white and concrete, and we don't have a picture of it, but it's tangible enough to know that something's going on. And when something's going on, we know what it is. That also means that we can address it and there's a path forwards. And, really figuring out how that all interacts and figuring out that tangibility of what I was going through is what helped me dive into it as a process so that I could actually heal all of these layers rather than just trying to address it, like heal this, get back, and I'll be good as normal.
I think that's a really, like the language that you're using to describe this kind of just unlocked something for me, and that we were talking about the physical injuries and the tangibility of that. And I think also just from a healing process too, like for the mental health side of things, the tangibility of like, I can't see my depression. I mean, you can once you know the signs and stuff, but like, there's not like your brain isn't like broken when you have depression or when you're living with anxiety. But I think like also just on the healing aspect, on the mental health side of things, like the second that I understood that this was going to be a lifelong journey for me and that it can't be done overnight, nor should it be attempted overnight, was the biggest exhale and like the most beautiful permission that I never would have given myself, because we're so wired to just like crank it out and get it done and like turn in your work and get your new car and make all the money and have your kids and do your house and all these things. Like just to settle into what it means to be healing. What a beautiful gift. That is spectacular. So talk to me about 2023, you're working on a new film. You've got public speaking engagements that you're working on and you'd like to do more of. Tell me about what 2023 has in store for you, Drew.
Just as a segue, the real reason that I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing is because all of this is a lifelong process, lifelong journey, like you say. And that's something that I always want to hammer home with people is I don't have this all figured out. It's not all unicorns and rainbows at this point, but I'm committed to that path of growth and I'm committed to that continued process. So on that note, 2023, I'm excited for a new year. It's nice to have a clean slate. Got some fun stuff coming up. So right now I'm working on a new film, which is again going to be, mental health related. This film is all filmed in my home state of Colorado, which I'm super proud of. So last spring in May, I skied a bunch of the peaks that surround the course of the Leadville 100, which is an iconic ultra running trail race. And then in August, I ran the Leadville 100 through those peaks that I had skied in May. And through that experience and being able to document both sides of that, we're going to be telling a story of mental health and about my connection to the mountains. So I'm super excited to be working on that. And then, got a lot of other things in the cooker right now. I really believe in not talking about something until you're bringing it to fruition. So some of that will stay hidden. But the other thing that I've really been focusing on lately and that I'm going to keep going on in 2023 is public speaking, because I really believe that opening space for these conversations in person is what is going to be the most powerful for people. And especially, like I said, my communities in the Rocky Mountain West, that's what I want to focus on. So through public speaking and, it's cool with that too, because it's going far past my communities into the mainstream into, I had a speaking gig in Tampa, Florida last month, which is crazy, or a wildland firefighting base. And, those are the experiences where I know that just by being human, just by sharing our real selves, we're able to connect on a much deeper level than, skiing or running or simply a connection to the mountains. And so that's where I'm putting my energy, and that's what I'm going to keep going on for 2023.
I love it. So everybody, if you aren't already following Drew, you can follow him on Instagram at DrewPeterski, and you can go to drew-petersen.com to check out ups and downs and all the other cool stuff that Drew's working on. Thank you so much, Drew, for joining us for this episode of Wellness in the Wilderness. Next week, I'll be chatting with Emily Henkel. Her story is tragic and triumphant. It is haunting and healing, and it is a story of love and loss. After a fall in Death Valley National Park in 2021, she was stranded for 6 days, during which the love of her life, Alex, did not survive. We're going to be chatting with Emily about how to return to the spaces that bring so much joy and carry so many painful memories, so be sure to tune in. Thank you for joining us for this week's dose of Wellness in the Wilderness. I sincerely hope that today's conversation with Drew was a breath of fresh air. I look forward to connecting with you again next week on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Don't forget to subscribe to our Wellness in the Wilderness newsletter at hikingmyfeelings.org/wellness. And that's it for us today. So until next week, take good care of yourself, take good care of each other, dream big, and be kind. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us on this week's show. We hope this episode has been a breath of fresh air for you and has inspired you to find your wellness in the wilderness. We will reconnect with nature and you again next week.
Since 1984, Sawyer has existed to support your wildest adventures. Learn about their advanced insect repellents and family of technical lightweight water filters at Sawyer.com.